Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 1998 Represent. On this episode, we're taking a look at Super Bowl 32 between the Denver Broncos and the Green Bay Packers. To help me out with this episode, over Labor Day weekend, I traveled and visited my friends, Matt and his dad, who are much bigger sports fans than I am, much bigger Broncos fans than I am. And I had them on as guests where we talked about the 1997 season leading up to the Super Bowl. We talked about the game itself, kind of like some of the history of the team and stuff like that. So what you're going to see is kind of like just the three of us just talking about this stuff. It's kind of it's one of our longer videos. But I'll be back at the end of the video to kind of wrap it up and talk about what's coming up and next. But again, I want to thank Matt and his dad for having me down over Labor Day weekend where we filmed this. We had a great time, went out to lunch and all that. So yeah, just sit back and watch this video about the 1997 NFL season along with the 1998 Super Bowl. The VHS tape that we actually watched, apparently that video is also up on YouTube. It's an NFL Films Super Bowl 32 video. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that out because it kind of breaks down the entire season and then the Super Bowl itself. So that video that we reference multiple times throughout the video, again, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can watch that. Just go ahead, take a look at this video. And again, I'll be back at the end of the video to kind of wrap things up. Welcome back to 1998 Represent. This is a very special sports episode. I'm actually, we're filming this over Labor Day weekend. They came down to visit Matt and T-Bone. We went to lunch, and we watched, for the show, we're talking about the 1998 Super Bowl 32. We watched, Matt had this Denver Broncos of NFL Films, right?
Yeah.
NFL Films video. We ended up watching this. It has the entire season on the back there. You might not be able to fully see that.
Schedule.
But we'll go over the schedule in the video. Today we're talking about the season leading up to the 1998 Super Bowl and just some other cool Bronco stuff. What's up, Matt?
What's up?
Not much.
Say hi to T-Bone.
Oh, what's up, T-Bone?
Oh, hello.
So when I told you about this series a while ago, and you said, "Are you gonna do any sports?" and I was like, I wasn't sure. And you said, "Well, if you do any sports, let me on them because I'm more into sports than you are." I was like, "Yeah, that's true." Yeah, Broncos represent. So we're talking about the 1998 Super Bowl and the season. And so go ahead.
Okay. So the Broncos won the Super Bowl that was played in January 1998. It was the 1997 season, but an NFL season goes over into the next January. So in 1998 represent, the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl for the first time. It was the fifth Super Bowl that they had played in. They played in one in the 1970s with Craig Morton and lost to the Dallas Cowboys. Then John Elway was drafted in 1983, and God was created. And John Elway became the face of football and sports and everything in Colorado, and he's Mr. Denver Bronco. And he went to the Super Bowl 3 times and lost all 3, getting blown out to the New York Giants, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Giants game was really ridiculous. Phil Simms went 22 for 25. It was so stupid. In the 49ers game, they got absolutely destroyed 55-7, so it was 55-0, and then Elway jumped in at the end for 1 touchdown, and that's what they did on The Simpsons. And then they lost another Super Bowl to the Washington racial slurs, and that game was in 1990, I think. So they hadn't been back to the Super Bowl, Elway in particular, for many years, but they went out and got a bunch of free agents. They got a new coach. They fired Dan Reeves. They drafted Terrell Davis, Ed McCaffrey, Neil Smith, all these guys that we're going to talk about. And in 1996, they went to the playoffs and lost this first-round game against Jacksonville. They were totally upset, so they came back in the 1997 season, ready for revenge.
Yeah, that was on the video. What was the playoff game that they lost in the beginning of this video?
It was the wild card game against Jacksonville. It was a huge upset. They were supposed to win the Super Bowl that was played in January 97. In that season, they had all the talent. Everybody thought they were ready, and they choked at home. They were wearing the old uniforms, this one, the orange one, and they changed the design and style to the one that T-Bone's wearing. which was the new style that they debuted in 1998 and won the Super Bowl.
Well, 1997, right?
Yeah. But that was the first year of that uniform, which has kind of been their uniform since then, that they have done adaptations of, but they've never gone back to the original.
You said you don't like the new logo? Or new being 25
I don't
years
like
old?
it as much as this. I like this horse up on its heels, and I just like the simpler orange and blue. That one has a...
You don't like the mean horse?
I don't like the navy blue. I don't like that horse at all. I think that horse is too over-designed. It's like a...
It's too stylized?
Yeah, and muscular, and like this guy... I don't know, because it's old school. But okay, so T-Bone, you're here because before the Broncos you were here, and then you saw the Broncos come to be. So tell us a little about the Broncos pre-John Elway.
Well, there was a lot of Broncos pre-John Elway. I can remember when I was a paper boy at 15 years old, and I would go by the Kuntz house, and Mr. Kuntz was running the Broncos at that time, and he had a station wagon parked out front with the Bronco insignia on it, and I had no idea what it was.
Uh-huh.
And today that wouldn't be the case. Today the case is everybody speaks Bronco and feels Bronco, and they've come a long, long ways. But I can tell you that the turbulence of the ownership in the beginning slowed it down. From Kaiser, Mr. Kaiser had it, and he got John Elway, and he had been drafted to another team that he refused to play for.
The Baltimore Colts. I was just telling Michael about this, that the Colts drafted him and he didn't want to play there, so he said, I will quit football and go play baseball for the Yankees unless you trade me. And it's one of the most famous trades in sports, and they traded him to the Broncos.
And Mr. Bolin flew out in his private jet.
So when did he buy the team?
Oh, excuse me, Kaiser.
Okay.
Kaiser drafted him, and he flew out there, brought him home, and it was a big deal. And then when, for some reason I don't remember, Kaiser sold the team, and it was to the Phippses and a couple other minor holders of the stock. And the Phippses are the ones that put it on the map and brought Broncoism into the words that everybody spoke around here, played hard down at the old Bears Stadium where they had to put in a stand that they had to hydrate with water to push it back to make the field wide enough to play football.
Because it was a baseball stadium.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they did all that. The Phipps boys are descendants of Senator Phipps, who was part of the early banking system, and he made a fortune. Carnegie was his partner, and they made a fortune. He brought it to Denver and spent it on us.
Mm-hmm. So when did Pat Bolin buy the team?
The Phipps brothers decided to sell the team because they were older, and they just had no children or anything that wanted to go forward with the team. So that's when they put it up for sale, and Bolin bought it.
And he was an oil man, right?
Oil from Canada.
Yeah.
And they, let's see, they sold it to Bolin. And Bolin got right into it. He loved it. He wanted to be a player. He wanted to be in the locker room. He wanted to be everything. But he was criticized the first game that he went to snowing, because in Canada it was traditional to have a big fur coat. And so he wore a big fur coat down on the sidelines, and every editorial was about how he wore a big fur coat, and that we don't do that in the United States. We don't need those kind of coats.
Especially the Cowboys in Denver.
Exactly. And then they ran it for a long, long time, and then Bolin had 5 kids, and Mr. Bolin went into what does it call you when you can't remember?
I don't know.
He
Alzheimer's.
Mr. Bolin got old, he passed, and the family just sold the team, and now we have a new ownership regime.
Well, his kids didn't want to go forward with the team
Right.
either. And so now we have the wonderful ownership by the Walton family.
Correct.
And they appear to want to spend unlimited money to make the team whatever it needs to do. And as Rob Walton said when they bought the team, he said, "We don't like to lose in the Walton family."
Yeah, we got to return to our glory starting this season.
Exactly.
That's why they went out and bought a big, expensive new head coach. Anyways, to go.
And Deion Sanders, right? Or is that
No, that's you. That's the call. But they're doing the same kind of thing, which is spending a ton of money to get better. So, if I may, one more thing before we get to this season. So, one thing that Pat Bowlen did, Dan Reeves was the coach forever, and he had a great relationship with Elway, and they did everything one kind of way. And at a certain point in the 90s, Pat Bowlen decided that wasn't going to be good enough, and he fired Reeves, and he brought in Shanahan, and Shanahan had what was for the time a very sophisticated new kind of offense and was very forward-thinking.
And was it like a couple years before that he won with the Super Bowl with, like, was it 49ers?
Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator for the 49ers. Yeah, so...
Who played in that? Like, San Francisco and who else?
Steve Young won one when they played the Chargers, but I think he was there when Montana was there, at least the end with Montana. And he had a relationship with Elway because...
but what was the 1995 Super Bowl that... the 49ers and who were
they
playing
beat
against?
the Chargers, the San Diego Chargers.
Oh, I feel.
Yeah. But Mike Shanahan coached the Raiders and did not do well and got fired by Al Davis. And he had a pre-existing relationship with John Elway because he had been with the Broncos a little bit. And so it was very much like a situation of like, okay, like, is he good enough to be a head coach? Can he turn an organization around? So when they lost that Jacksonville game, he was under a lot of pressure too. Because he probably would have gotten fired if they were just unable to make playoff advances. And then you have Terrell Davis, who was a 6th-round draft pick, and absolutely no one expected anything of. And then
check out the jersey, a T-Bone jersey.
I know. And so in 1995, real quick story, they played a preseason game in Japan to build some hype for the NFL, and they were in Japan. And so when you're the guys that are the lowest on the roster, you play on special teams, which is kickoffs and punts and kicks and stuff like that. And there was a kickoff where we kicked off to the other team, and Terrell Davis ran down and knocked this dude out, hit him really hard, and everybody was like, "Who's that guy?" And then he became the running back, and in 4 years, he built a Hall of Fame career because then he got injured and never really played again. And absolutely, my favorite Bronco of all time. Although, I mean, John Elway, you know, 37 years old in this season, lots on the line. All right, go into it.
All right, so we watched this video. I remember watching... like up in the mountains, like I like the Broncos enough, but I obviously probably wasn't following them as much as you, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember like them getting into this Super Bowl, and then this being like, I guess like cautiously optimistic would be the term, where I'm like, okay, like I want them to win, but I won't be surprised if they don't, because they've done that before with like however many times it was, like what, 4 times?
Well, so what had happened? They had lost 4 before that, and Elway had lost 3 before that.
So I remember what were the 3 again? The 1990 and what year? 90, like 87
I think like 87, 88, and 90 or something like that. But he hadn't been back to the Super Bowl for a while. I mean,
I definitely remember the one where, because they just got like destroyed by San Francisco, right?
Yeah, that was 90.
And then I remember the one from...
That was 89, I think.
And then I remember the one of the Giants. I don't remember. What was the one right before the Giants?
Washington.
Yeah, Washington.
Yeah.
Was it Washington, New York, and San Francisco? Like in that order?
I don't remember the order.
Okay.
I think San Francisco was the 3rd one that he had lost. But he developed this reputation, because John Elway was incredible in college, incredible in the NFL. Everyone knows he's one of the best of all time. He had won multiple MVPs, a million comebacks, prototypical quarterback, the absolute stud of the game. And he just couldn't do it. He just couldn't win the Super Bowl, and everybody said, I don't know, like, because it's so important to win the championship, and everyone was like, is this guy going to do it? And at this point, he's 36 years old. It's the NFL. He's been getting the crap beat out of him.
I remember
for all
like
these
every
years.
season there was all those like when the season would start in like the papers, like the sports section would be
Yeah.
like Broncos going to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and they would say that every year, and then they finally get there.
So there was
not finally get there again, like for 8 years, right?
so much pressure on them, and they're this huge underdog because the AFC team hadn't won the Super Bowl in like 15 years. I think the Raiders were the last one in 1982.
You were saying when we were watching this, you were commenting
San Francisco won 5, Dallas won 3, the Giants won 2, a couple other teams won Washington won 3. Like in amongst there, the NFC just completely dominated the NFL and in blowouts. They were all blowouts for 15 years. The Bills lost 4 in a row. The Bills kept going back and kept losing.
Yeah, they lost to Dallas twice in a row.
They lost to Dallas, the Giants, and I don't even know.
Well, I don't know if it was twice in a row. I know they lost it. I remember that.
We're not here to talk about the Bills, but anyways, So the Broncos were 2 touchdown underdogs. The Packers had won the year before, so it was just no one took them seriously. And what I loved about watching this video and watching all these games, they only lost 3 games this season, or 4 games. They went 12-4. They won a ton of close games. They very clearly were focused and they were driven and they were on a mission and they were going to get back there. They had a ton of luck. They got a ton of great interceptions. They had veterans. They had health. They had all the things they needed. They had the experience and they were incredibly, incredibly focused. They were incredibly driven to reach their final goal, which was getting to the Super Bowl. And the most exciting thing is they lose these 2 games on the road in the regular season to Kansas City and Pittsburgh, these 2 really hard-fought games where they're like, oh, we can't get past this hill. And then in the playoffs, what do? They exercise all their ghosts. They destroy Jacksonville. They go to Kansas City and beat Kansas City in a close game. They go to Pittsburgh and beat Pittsburgh in a close game. And now they're in the Super Bowl against Brett Favre.
Yeah, and like I'm just gonna run down these scores and games really quick. So first game on this thing was they won against Kansas City 19-3. They stomped them. And then Seattle was 35-14. They got stomped them.
Driving.
St. Louis. What team is that? The Rams.
They were the Rams.
And then they never LA.
Correct.
Or whatever LA represent.
Trounced.
Yeah, trounced. 35-14 against St. Louis. Then the Bengals, Cincinnati.
Get out of town.
Yeah, 38-20. That's closer, I guess. Then Atlanta, 29-21.
Dan Reeves, whoop his butt. Coming back the next year to repeat in 1999. 1999 represent Denver Broncos smacked the butts off the Atlanta Falcons. Shout out to Eugene Robinson.
And then we have New England with Bledsoe, 34. It was Bledsoe still.
Yeah, and they had won the AFC the year before, and the Broncos
34-13.
them.
Yeah, because the year before was what was it? Green Bay and New England.
Right.
Then they lost to Oakland like in a close game, 28.
Divisional game.
Buffalo again won in overtime by a field goal.
After the October blizzard, that crazy October blizzard.
And then there's Seattle, 30-27. They won that.
Bye.
Won against Carolina, 34-0.
Bye.
Trounced. They lost to Kansas City, like you were saying a second ago. Lost to Kansas City, 22-24.
Very close game.
Won against the Raiders, 31-3.
Take that, suck it. Say it again.
And then they won against San Diego, 38-28. They lost against Pittsburgh, 24-35. And then final game is this one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Final game of the season, regular season, is
San Francisco. Still very good.
They lost 17-34, and then won against San Diego, 38-3. So wait, it's Chargers. Like, what's the thing now? So it was the Rams, and now the Rams are the Chargers.
Kind of.
Or 2 teams there now.
Yeah, there's 2 teams in LA. There's the Rams and the Chargers, and the Raiders are in Vegas.
And they play in the same stadium.
Correct.
All right, that's weird. Also, and then we get into the playoffs. So we have the wild card game against Jacksonville, which they won 42-17.
Trounced.
And then we have the divisional playoffs against Kansas City, which they won 14-10. Close.
Dug deep. Marty Schottenheimer chokes again.
And then the AFC Championship.
A terrible fake kick. Remember that fake field goal? They should have kicked that field goal.
Yeah, they should have kicked it.
Yeah.
I learned that from Madden. Don't be messing around. The AFC Championship against Pittsburgh, they won that 24-21. And then we move into the Super Bowl, which was 31-24. And like I was mentioning to you earlier and to T-Bone earlier, that this was like the first game in a while where it wasn't like a complete blowout or like very low scoring, right?
No, very close.
Wasn't there some Super Bowls within this time period that were like single-digit games?
Most of them after that. So the year after that was not.
Well,
close.
I mean before this one.
No, most of them before that were not close.
Like they were like blowouts.
All the Cowboys ones were pretty much blowouts. All the Niners ones were pretty much blowouts. All of the Giants. Well, the Giants had the one thriller against the Bills, but like of the 4 the Bills lost, only one of them was.
Yeah,
close.
I remember betting against somebody against the
Packers killed New England the year before. Like in
1995, I remember making a bet with somebody. And it wasn't if the 49ers would win, because I think everybody, that's the first time I heard about, like, spread. Where, like, how's the spread where, like, if they win, that they have to win by a certain number of points?
So the Broncos are favored by 5, and they win by a touchdown, which is 7. They covered the spread.
Yeah,
if they
so
win
I bet
3,
they don't.
Yeah.
So I bet on the spread thing. I think I won.
Okay.
And then we move into Super Bowl 32.
How's your parlay doing today? You got some baseball action going?
No, I don't do parlays.
Okay.
All right, anyway, so now we're talking about this particular game. I remember kind of being worried, like, on the bus. I was talking to a friend of mine, like, before this game, like maybe like the week before, like who I thought was going to win. I was like, well, I hope the Broncos win, but like, like I wasn't really sure because of like how like the past games.
Yeah.
But then even like you said when we were watching this video, who's the guy, Freeman?
Antonio Freeman.
And he scored that first field goal or
first touchdown. Went down the field and scored like it was nothing
on the opening drive.
And these are the defending champions. They're like, no, you're not taking our time.
And I was like, oh, like here we go again.
Well, so here's how I felt. So the Broncos go to a bunch of Super Bowls when I was a kid, and it was such a great thing when you're a kid, and then this felt like a throwback, and it's like, Elway's back. We get another shot. Here we go. And it just felt different because the year before it was so demoralizing when they lost to Jacksonville. Like, absolutely.
But you were saying you were worried about that first touchdown, right?
I was, but it did feel different. Like T-Bone, I don't know, it felt different that year.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, I guess it was early in the game too, so it's still.
So they get the first drive, but then you're saying, because the Broncos are an offensive team, they're driven by this workhorse, Terrell Davis, a literal Bronco tromping down the field.
Or Terrell in the cover, man.
Yeah, and so when the Packers score, you're just saying, well, what are the Broncos going to do? And then they come out and score their own touchdown right away. Tough running from Terrell Davis. Here's our star. Here's our MVP. Here's our quarterback making throws. We've got a Hall of Famer in Shannon Sharp. We've got these great receivers. Like, they just showed they weren't afraid. So they're able to come out there and get that touchdown, and then they get the second touchdown.
Yeah, and then the thing I want to mention is when we were watching this video, remember how Terrell Davis would have migraines? Mm-hmm. And he's like, hey, coach, I can't see. And then he's like, hey, get in the game. They don't know that you can't see.
Right.
That was crazy.
They needed it as a decoy.
I forgot that.
Because remember, like, when they were watching the video, Shanahan's like, he's like, hey, like, I got a migraine and I can't see. And what was Shanahan? Basically, he's like, well, they don't know that.
So let me go into some X's and O's, if I may.
All right.
One of the most basic plays in football is called the play action. Okay? It's basically like you've been given the ball to your running back 3 times in a row. So then you pretend you're going to give it to him, but the quarterback keeps it. Now, the quarterback can throw it or he can run like Elway did there. And Elway ran the touchdown in. But as a smart defense...
Was that the same play where he was saying he was like couldn't see, and then Shanahan was like, just get in there anyway?
Exactly. Because here's the thing. As the defense, if Terrell Davis's backup is in there, he's not getting the ball because he's not very good. That's why he's the backup. So Elway's going to keep the ball.
Wait, who's the backup? Terrell Davis's backup or the other guys?
Terrell Davis's backup. So I'm saying if I'm the defense and I look at that and they come out there and they set up like they're going to run, but Terrell Davis isn't out there, I know Elway's going to have the ball. Elway's going to do something. He's going to throw or he's going to run, but they're not going to give it to Terrell Davis's backup because that guy sucks. So they send Terrell out there and everyone's looking at him, and then Elway takes off over here, and they never even hit Terrell because they know he doesn't have the ball, but they needed him out there for the fake. And it worked perfectly. It was a brilliant play, and that's when you're like, oh my God, we could win this thing.
Didn't you say that would cause problems now? Because throughout this whole video, people are getting rocked, right?
Yeah.
And you said these hits are
illegal. It's a very violent era in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm down with it. But yeah, you were saying like some of the hits are like illegal, and then just like when Elway did that dive.
They're not illegal. They're just different now. So like basically, they don't want anyone to get a concussion. So if it looks like you're putting your head down when you're going at someone, even if it's incidental. Like, even if, like, I get hit from behind and then my head hits somebody, they just don't want any of that to happen. And the way that it is with quarterbacks now is the quarterbacks are the stars of the NFL, so they don't want any of them to get hurt and miss time. And so, basically, like, if I'm the defender and the quarterback's standing there with the ball, I can run up to him and kind of maybe, like, grab him and fall on the ground, but I can't take his head off. I can't smash him. If somebody's already tackling him, I can't come in and smash him. Like,
yeah, like people made a comment about the player's going to be wrapped in cotton, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't. It's a attempt to change some of the violence in the game. Now we can go into some minutia of offensive line play because the Broncos got a lot of criticism back then because that offensive line, which they called the Hush dudes or whatever, the Orange Hush, were known for hitting people down around their knees, which is called a chop block, which is very illegal because you can pull someone's knee out.
What line is that Romanowski on? Is he on that?
He's on the defensive line. He's a linebacker on the defense. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, those guys are Tom Nalen and a whole bunch of other dudes that were never talked to the media. They never talked to the media. It was their whole thing. But they were very, very important because they were all undersized. Like, it was rare to have an offensive line where no one weighed 300 pounds. And the Mike Shanahan offense was all about having these athletic linemen that would move as a row together, as a group. But they also did chop block and they did some shady stuff. But we don't need to talk about the shady stuff. We're here to celebrate the good times. Hold on, I have a quick question. Do you remember where you watched the Super Bowl?
Wow. I don't.
You probably went to a party, though, with a bunch of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, where I was living at the time had a big party room.
You think it was over there?
And I invited our staff to come over there.
For that Super Bowl?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
So you watched it with the staff?
Yeah.
At the house?
Well, yeah.
I never knew that.
In the party room.
Oh, I love that. What a beautiful... I can't believe it. Well, so I watched it in Boulder with a bunch of kids. I was a freshman in high school, and then we had a big party. Do you remember?
I just watched it up in my house in the mountains, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, being in the basement and then being like, watching some of it in my room and then going downstairs and watching the rest of it down there.
Yeah, you're getting fired up.
Yeah, it was tight because it was like actually, like I said, a close game instead of it being like a blowout. I remember like talking to this one guy I worked with one time, and like he was a Packers fan. And I was like, "Oh, that was like a pretty good game, right?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Why not?" He's like, "Oh, because the Packers lost."
Yeah.
But I was like, "But it was at least like it was at least not a blowout and not like a one-way game." And he was just like big on the Packers. Like, he really didn't care. Like no.
I will say, if I may jump ahead forward into the future for a little bit, the Elway Super Bowls and then also one of the Peyton Manning Super Bowls, when your team's getting blown out, it sucks. Like when they lost to the Seahawks, the game was over 5 minutes into it, and then you're just watching them just get destroyed for 3 hours, and that really sucks. So I will say, as a fan, it hurts more to lose a close game, but it is more fun to watch a close game.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to halftime, 40th anniversary of Motown. Shout out to
I don't remember what they didn't even show any of that in this video.
I know, but we saw it somewhere else. But shout out to Smokey Robinson. Shout out to Diana Ross, the Supremes, reigning supreme. Marvin Gaye.
And then was that Elway hit when he did the jump?
That was in the third quarter. So describe what you saw.
So Elway was running, and he was like, he could have. You were telling me that he could have just slid him and have been fine, probably.
Yeah.
But he's like, I need a couple extra yards, so I'm gonna jump.
Yeah.
And then he got like spun.
When the quarterback starts to slide, you can't hit him. When he goes down legs first and he's just sliding on the grass, you can't hit him. But these are football players. They're tough guys, and they hit for a living. And if you're John Elway and you're 37 years old, and you're right there, you want to win it. This is the closest he's ever been in his whole life. He sacrificed his body. He jumped in the air. Because when a guy jumps in the air, it's completely up for grabs. You can hit him as hard as you want to.
Yeah,
and Elway goes up there, and those three guys hit him. And what's amazing about it is they spin him, and the hit hurts, but the spin is really clean. So he doesn't end up under a pile of guys. He just falls on the ground. And they spin him, and he goes forward. So it really worked out great because he doesn't get clobbered. I'm sure it hurt like hell. But he doesn't get, like, crunched, and he goes forward, picks up some yards, and, I mean...
Was that the touchdown that he just ran in, or was that a different one?
That was the one before it.
Okay.
But right after that one, Terrell Davis ran it in.
Well, because then they get like really close, and then Terrell just like picked up.
Yeah. So the scoring in the game is Terrell Davis had 3 rushing touchdowns, and John Elway had 1.
Terrell was the MVP.
Terrell was the MVP. He didn't even play the third quarter. I mean, or the second quarter. We're talking about a god amongst men. This is how you make a Hall of Fame career: is you play 3 quarters in the Super Bowl, score a touchdown in each of them, with a migraine. Absolute legend. Terrell G.D. Davis comes back the next year, rushes for 2,008 yards, MVP season. We're talking 4 years, Hall of Fame career.
But was a year later, Elway was the MVP?
Elway was the MVP. He threw for 3 touchdowns against Atlanta. So, anyways, I lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Oh, I think we're wrapping up the game part of it. But then the aftermath, you were saying you went to the parade?
I went to the parade. Oh, well, so there's one more thing I want to talk about in the game. So, that hit at the end, we were talking about, like, the big hits.
The Elway hit was
Steve Atwater right here came in and crushed that other guy, remember? And then they're all on the field.
And then he passed out?
Yeah, and so that was... So it's the end of the game, and the Packers are down 7, and they're driving, and that happened, and it stopped all the momentum of the game, and because you had like 10-minute delay while they deal with these guys that are unconscious, and then they take them all off the field, and then they keep going, and I think that kind of messed up Brett Favre's rhythm.
Maybe, and then also... The one thing, Brett Favre lost this game, but then later in this year, he still had a hit with their son about Mary at least.
That's very true. So, the Broncos win. They pick up John Elway. They carry him around. All the fireworks go off. Pat Bowlen's
crying. And he's
running,
taking his helmet off for like 10 minutes.
I mean, it was the greatest moment of his life. It was everything. It was the king of the world.
And
here's the craziest thing.
Remember how like they said in 1999, if they won one more, they'd be the only team that would do 3 in a row.
Yeah, no one's ever done that. But here's the thing with John Elway.
Is that record still around?
Yes. It's never happened in the NFL. There hasn't even been a repeat NFL champion in quite a while. The Patriots were the last one, I think, and that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah. Was Romanowski on that team too?
The Patriots?
No, at that time.
On the Patriots?
Yeah.
No, he retired. He retired right after that.
No, I meant Gronkowski. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna see, what was that movie? The Tom Brady movie. We ended up not seeing it.
80 for Brady.
Yeah.
Shout out Lily Tomlin. Shout out Jane Fonda. Shout out Sally Field, who's the 4th one. Shout out Rita Moreno, the legend, the god, Rita Moreno. EGOT.
I guess maybe we
are off topic.
All right.
So anyway, Pat Bowlen says, this one's for John. All the crying, all the tears. Just
one of my friends in high school,
all of our lives,
who lived on the opposite side of the town of me, like literally said, like, I guess he just, like, ran in. He lived close to town, so, like, it's basically his condo that he lived in was, like, right near, like the main street. So he just, like, ran down Main Street, like...
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, just, like, didn't put a coat on, just was, like...
I've done it.
Middle of winter.
I've done it. When Tim Tebow threw a very famous pass in the playoffs, I stuck my head out the window and screamed.
I mean, Tebow's all right. I think he just got really lucky with those
Well, that was a first-round playoff game. I mean, it wasn't the same thing.
But
okay, so hold on. So, well, I have a question for T-Bone.
Okay.
So you've been around here your whole life. You've seen all these teams. You know, you've seen the Broncos get introduced, all the other Nuggets, Rockies, Avs.
Has T-Bone heard about the Denver Nuggets?
Have you heard about the Denver Nuggets?
Have I heard of the Denver Nuggets?
Have you heard about the Denver Nuggets? Did you hear?
I think I've heard.
They had a good summer. Did you hear what happened to the Nuggets?
They won.
Yeah.
They won.
They only lost 4 playoff games.
They're wonderful.
They went 16.
Yeah, like I was telling you when
they
won.
swept the Lakers. LA represent.
Yeah, well, I don't like LeBron that much anyway. But like I was telling you, like now the Rockies are the only ones that are like the odd people out.
That's very true.
That's
very true.
Championship at some point.
Shout out to the Buffs. Shout out to Deion and Shadur Sanders. Shout out to Travis Hunter. It's a good time to be around here. Shout out to the Joker. Shout out to Jamal Murray. Shout out to Aaron Gordon. Shout out to Michael Porter Jr. Shout out to Casey.
Okay, you can't list the entire team.
Christian Brown. Shout out to, in fact, the entire Eco crew with Bruce Brown, with Jeff Green. Shout out to Vladko. Shout out to Zeke Naji. Shout out to Coach Malone.
All right.
Shout out to Josh Kroenke.
All right, Matt, let's go. All right, so
here's my question for T-Bone. So you've been around here for a minute.
More than that.
The Broncos winning for the first time,
right,
and John Elway winning. Talk about what it means to the people around here, to the community. You drive all over Colorado in your career, and you see all these people that are Broncos fans. I mean, what was this moment for Bronco Nation?
Well, I think they were surprised,
Mm-hmm.
and to have a winner like that, and to be able to celebrate it, was a big deal everywhere. I mean, throughout the state, everybody was proud of the team, and it became a lot of people talking about it all the time. You know, I want to go back on one point. My father's company had Bronco tickets in the beginning when it first started, and we couldn't get anybody to go to the game with us because it was just a football game, a pro football game here, and then all of a sudden they got important, and you couldn't get a seat, and
because it's pretty hard to get tickets to even just like a regular game, right?
The waiting list for season tickets is 15 years.
yeah.
Yeah, I know somebody that
Well, we didn't have a choice.
yeah, I know somebody that has them, and like they were saying like they were on that list for however many years before they even got on it, or were offered like a spot to get tickets.
But not to break the train of thought, but it just popped into my mind that, as you say, all the season tickets are on the people are waiting for a long time to be able to get them, and I can remember just we'd go and I think we had 6 tickets and we'd throw them away. And 2 of us would go.
This is the 60s, the 70s?
I would imagine it was 60s.
Mm-hmm. Well, because that's the era. I mean, that's even before Lyle Alzado. That's before Tom Jackson. That's before the Three Amigos. That's before. I mean, that's
way before
the Floyd Little days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, who would have ever expected this? And they truly own the respect that they get around Colorado.
Well, really, the whole Front Range, because you talk about Wyoming and New Mexico and the Dakotas and Montana and
I know,
and
like people
Idaho.
from Utah that like there's no NFL team in Utah, so they'll come out here.
I mean, the Bronco. You know, you could, geographically, I know it's not a lot of people, but geographically, about a quarter of the country is Broncos fans. When you just spread out all that,
Right.
You know, so it's.
I bet that's
or
true.
it's like the closest stadium or closest
Yeah.
NFL team to where they might be.
Yeah, and so. And it was Elway. It all started with Elway when he got drafted, and it was just this amazing special guy that we had that was going to do it, and everybody believed. I mean, talk about what Elway meant in the '80s. You know, the way people looked at him.
Well, he was magic. He was even with him not always winning. He had this energy, this magic when he played, and people respected that. They'd get very mad at him when they lost, but they respected how he was a great player.
Yeah,
and
pretty good.
And he was good for PR for the team around Denver, and it all worked out. Good team.
Yeah. So they win.
You kind of go off of his point. So I had this one teacher in high school that was just a huge Broncos fan, and it was pretty like obviously known that he was a huge Broncos fan. And like the Monday after the Super Bowl, like he wasn't there. People were like, hey, where's the teacher at? And they're like, oh, he took a sick day to celebrate the Broncos. I'm like, all right. And then you were saying the same thing happened to you.
Well, so the parade was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I don't remember, but do you remember the parade?
Wednesday.
Did you go?
No.
So, I didn't. I left school early. I went to school for a couple hours and then I left.
So surprised.
I got on the bus with my friend. Most of the people on the bus were going to the parade. 15-year-old college freshman or high school freshman. And we come down here and we're walking to Civic Center Park and we're walking on the 16th Street Mall and I ran into one of my teachers. And she said to me, I won't tell if you don't. And we just kept walking.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Very funny.
And I mean, everybody from my school was down there. I mean, we were the freshmen. We didn't even have cars.
Yeah.
Everybody was down there. Nobody was at school. It was all anybody was talking about. I mean, it was incredible. It was just this incredible moment. So, 1998, the Broncos' regular season of the second championship was in 1998. It was the fall of 1998. It was September, October, November, December. Do you know what the record was?
Wasn't it like they lost one game?
They lost 2 games. They were 14-2, and I believe they were 11-0 before they lost their first game. Because I vividly remember reading all these articles about are they going to go undefeated, and no team's ever gone undefeated. Now I'm glad they lost the game because they needed to because the pressure of going undefeated, as we saw with the Patriots,
they went undefeated and then lost the most important game of that whole thing.
Exactly. But I mean, again,
sorry, Tom Brady.
The Broncos had great health. Their biggest injury was to Elway, and Bubby Brister played great in the games that they needed him to play in. Terrell Davis, MVP season, 2,008 yards. At the time, he was only the 5th player in NFL history to have over 2,000 yards in a season. Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, Shannon Sharp, just all these guys.
Was Romanowski still on the team at the time, or did he get traded?
He was still on the team because Romanowski had an ugly incident that was the next season.
He got traded to the Raiders at one point. I don't know if it was the Raiders.
Yeah, we traded him to the Raiders. That's right, and he was on those Rich Gannon teams, I think.
Right.
But in 1999, we were playing San Francisco on Monday Night Football, and Romanowski was in the face of a wide receiver yelling at him, and he spit in the guy's face, and it made us look really bad. It was really ugly. I was glad. I mean, listen.
Was that after? That was
the NFL. You got to do what you got to do. But
you're talking about the 1999
after the championships. Yeah, so the bad '99 season.
Okay.
So in 1998, they win.
No way on that.
They go 11-0. Just the absolute 100,000,000% favorite to win the Super Bowl. Now, we're going to go into January 1999. I'm sorry. There was a little something going on in Minnesota where there was an incredible team quarterbacked by Randall Cunningham, and they had the twin duo wide receivers of Chris Carter and Randy Moss. It was the rookie season of Randy Moss. He had 1,000,000 touchdowns. He was the most exciting player I think I've ever seen on a football field. And they were the guys that we were going to play in the Super Bowl. Everybody knew it. It was like this incredible offense and versus the champions. And who's it going to be? Randall Cunningham's been around forever.
Would it have been a better game than what we got?
Absolutely. So what happened was, because here's the thing, this is why it was so important for the Broncos to break through. Because when you're a team that's never won before, you look at all of the worst losses you've ever had, and you're just like, that's who we really are. We never get over that hump. We never get over the big hill. And Minnesota, in the NFC Championship, played against Atlanta and totally choked, and Atlanta beat them. The Minnesota kicker was the most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL up to that point, and he missed 2 field goals that would have won that game for them. And they lost to the Falcons, and it was this total upset. But it was great for us because we were a steamroller. And so unless we played a top-tier team, which Minnesota was, we knew we were going to win the Super Bowl. We're playing Atlanta. We're like, we got no problem.
But the funny thing of that, though, it was that way against Dan Reeves at that time.
Which was a crazy story, a very crazy story. But, I mean, we had so many better players than them on both sides of the ball. And then, PG-13, one of the best players on Atlanta was their free safety, Eugene Robinson, who won the NFL Man of the Year award when they give out the NFL awards at the Super Bowl. And so on the Saturday night before Super Bowl Sunday, they had that award ceremony and gave him the NFL Man of the Year award. And they were down in Miami, and then he celebrated by going out and trying
by being not good.
He was not being good, and he got in some trouble, and that affected him in the Super Bowl because he was defending Rod Smith when Elway beat him deep with a pass to Rod Smith that was basically the go-ahead touchdown to win the game. So, and Elway won the MVP. Oh, so here's my point. So Elway won the Super Bowl MVP, and they carried him off the field, and he celebrated.
You're talking about the 32 or 33?
This is the 33, the second one. And then like a month later, he came out and just was like, that's it. And he retired. And so
because I remember watching that one, and somebody after the game was over, they do all the interviews, and they were like, "Hey, no team has won 3 in a row. Do you think you can do one more?" And Elway was didn't really comment on it.
It would have been very hard. It's very, very hard. I mean, it takes a lot out of you, and I think with such an older veteran team,
but also I don't know, just the way football games are laid out, what are playoff games are you lose one, you're out, right?
Right. Yeah, it's one.
So it's not like a baseball thing where if you lose one, you got.
Well, that's what happened to Minnesota. 9 times out of 10, they were the better team. I mean, that's what happened to those Patriots teams that were undefeated. That's what's so exciting about football is the better team can lose. They don't often lose, but they definitely can.
Yeah, and then if you lose, you're just done. And unlike basketball, where it's best of 7.
And that's why it was so crazy with Elway.
But sometimes you get swept like LeBron.
Yeah, and sometimes you pull off miracles like LeBron did in 2016. So, but yes, he did get swept by the Denver Nuggets. Shout out to the Denver Nuggets. Michael, have you heard about the Denver Nuggets?
Yeah, I've heard of the Nuggets.
So the thing with Elway is he has this amazing career, and everyone is saying, well, you didn't get it done. And it felt so stupid because it's this is one of the best we've ever seen. He has all these stats. Everybody, I mean, you couldn't ask for a more successful career, but he doesn't have the rings, and so everyone's like, I don't know. And then he wins them back-to-back, and that's it. There's just nothing else to argue about. There's no one that can say anything to him. There's no attack on him that's going to stand up. And he was ready, and he was just
and then also trying to do 3 in a row, then losing. It's you should go out on a high note, right?
And he did. Well, that's my point. Is he went out on a high note. So the last 2 seasons of his career ended in championships. He's getting carried out. That Jacksonville loss was the last painful loss of his career. I mean, it just couldn't have been a better storybook for him.
Other losses were painful though.
Not the same as losing a playoff game when you're trying to win a championship. I mean, when you get to that level, it is championship or nothing. That's where LeBron is. That's where all the greats are. When you're a great at a certain age, it is, I want a ring or this season was a waste. And what is absolutely incredible about the Denver Broncos, and I'm going to go back to John Elway on this, is when they brought him back in retirement and he was an executive with the team, he went out, he took a big risk on Peyton Manning after his neck surgery. He brought him here, and Peyton got the exact same ending. Peyton Manning's last season ends with a championship. He gets to go out the same way of getting carried off the field into retirement with no regrets, no sadness, just I went out on top. And it's so crazy that as Broncos fans, we've had this, we're so privileged to have this experience of these guys winning this way because it's such a cool story, and you get to root for them. So, Peyton struggled so much for 3 years. But it was all Elway. Elway went and got him. Elway hired John Fox. Elway drafted Von Miller. I'm sorry. If you don't think that John Elway is the most important athlete in the history of this state, I don't know what to say to you. Boom, got him.
All right. I think that's going to wrap it up then. I want to thank Matt.
Wait, I got one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
All right. The Broncos season starts on Sunday. What's your prediction for the season?
Oh, I don't know. I really don't pay attention to it that often. I don't really pay attention.
You think they'll make the playoffs?
Maybe. I don't know.
What about you?
I mean, probably.
New head coach. So they brought in the head coach from the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton, won a championship, incredible, very highly established head coach. They got Russell Wilson. He needs to have a comeback year. Very talented team. Best young corner in football. I'm saying they're going to win one playoff game.
I really have a...
Hold me to this. They're going to win one playoff game.
Okay. We'll check that back in January?
Yeah.
Or December?
Yeah. Shout out Capricorn season.
Well, like I said, that's why I came down here because, when I was telling you about the series, and I said, you're like, hey, can I do any of the sports episodes? And I said, sure. Next time I'm down there, we'll film something.
Yeah. And
that's what this is. And I said, you definitely know more about the Broncos than I do, and are more invested than I am.
Denver Broncos represent my top 5 personal favorite Broncos. Number 1, Terrell Davis. Boom, 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 boom. That's a man. Number 2, John Elway. Number 3, Von Miller. Number 4, Rod Smith. Number 5, who did I say earlier? Champ Bailey. Absolutely. Oh, the most talented. Oh my God, Champ Bailey. Have we not been spoiled with these athletes over time?
I guess not. I don't know.
All right, go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
But like I said, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. I think I'm going to thank Matt and T-Bone for hosting this and having me down here. We filmed this over Labor Day weekend, so hope everybody had a good Labor Day. This is going to be posted after Labor Day, so it'll be posted after that. Anyway, we'll be back again in a few days for another video. Don't know what that will be just yet. But anyway, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Denver Nuggets!
Thank you.
All right, this is the end of the video. So again, I want to thank Matt and his dad for having me over, and we discussed the season, the game, and all that. Again, that's going to wrap it up for this video. I think next video coming out in a few days will be looking at another movie or something like that, and then we'll be doing another video game after that. Don't know what movie or game yet, but those will be up pretty soon. Again, that's going to do it for now. So remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again next time. Thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one. See ya.